Hi everyone and welcome to our webinar tonight that focuses on managing your finances whilst at university. My name's Chelsea and I'm your host, and I'm joined by Bobby from the Future You team here at UCEN. Bobby, can you just tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So I work as part of the Future You team, and we support our UCEN students and applicants, or just anyone who wants just some advice on higher education with a number of support issues. So it could be finance, applying for student loans, progression, career pathways. The things we cover are extremely broad, and there's a lot of overlap as well. So you may find that you ask us one question and then we open things up and you're getting lots and lots of different areas answered, just to prepare you for higher education.
Bro, thank you. So tonight we're covering all things finances. For some people moving to uni for the first time, it might be the first time they have full responsibility of their finances, and it can be quite overwhelming for some people. So we're here to give you a bit of advice on how to manage it a bit better. Okay, so I'm going to jump straight in and just ask, what are the costs of university?
So the main costs to be aware of are your tuition fees and your living costs. So with the tuition fees, those go straight to the university. A lot of times when students access student loans, the tuition fee and living cost loan, known as the maintenance loan, is calculated separately. So they wouldn't give you one lump sum and then you're responsible for paying for university and then paying for your own cost as well. So the money that goes to you directly is for your living cost only. And with living costs, it really depends on the individual. So the average student spends about £810 a month, according to the most recent statistics. So that's going to include things like your rent, if you're not living at home with your parents. You've got travel costs. That could be travel home, travel to your campus. You've got your regular bills. So if you are living out, depending on where you live, you might have separate electricity bill, internet bill. Then you've got groceries. So, going out doing your shopping. In addition to that, you maybe like takeaways a lot. So that's an additional cost. You may have course materials depending on what you're studying. Some more practical courses, let's say, art, media makeup, performing arts, they're going to have kit you may need, and some of that kit can be quite expensive. And last but not least, you're a student, you want to go out, you want to enjoy yourself. So you got to think about how much money you want to spend when you go out, where you like going out, and what kind of activities you like doing in your free time. And think about how much those activities are going to cost you.
I think it's good to spell things out like that, because I know personally, when I went to uni, I just didn't really think about what I would be spending. I was just like, I'm going to uni, because you have so many other things to think about. You don't really consider like your actual outcome. And yeah, you might, be eligible for, loans, and it comes in one lump sum per semester. But then it's about thinking, right, well, I actually do need to, think about how I'm going to be spending this and make sure that I, budget accordingly and stuff like that. But you just don't think about it initially, because you're just thinking about like going to just the actual thought of going to university. It kind of sometimes might sidetrack some people, and then they get there and then think, oh, actually I need to buy my shopping. Like, I've never really had to buy my shopping before, because parents or whoever they live with might have done that and been responsible for it. And even travel, because you might have been eligible for like a bus pass or something in your hometown, and then you go to a new town and you might not know what you're eligible for at first, and so you might be paying an arm and a leg for your travel costs. So it's a lot to think about, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And if this is your first time living away from home, living independently, it can be slightly overwhelming when you think about how many different costs you have. And also, it's the fact that, in one single payment, you can have several £1,000s just added to your bank account. And some people get maybe a bit overexcited. They think, great, Freshers Week, gonna go do loads of shopping, buy myself some new clothes. But if you're paid that money in September, that money has to last you until December. So all those things we mentioned, it's money for your rent, money for your bills, money for travel. Imagine, if you want to go home every 2-3 weeks on the train and see your parents, you might have a car. Cars need petrol. So it's very, very important to budget it properly and make it last. And also, depending on where you're moving to, it could be a lot more expensive than where you normally live. So, you're thinking, great, I'll take the bus to campus. Well, think, how much does a bus normally cost where you live? But also think, how much does it cost to catch the bus every day from my new place to my new campus? So you might think, do I need to maybe fork out some money in advance to get like a student travel pass, which are heavily discounted? Or am I just going to pay the standard fare every day? So yeah, all these things add up. So it's very, very important to think and realize once that money's spent, it's spent. It's not going to get replaced until your next loan installment comes in January. So you have to think to yourself, I have to stretch this money out the best way possible. And it is for everything I have to spend, everything I have to factor in. And, you can always look from the very beginning and realize, this money isn't going to work out how I plan to. So then you have to think, how can I add more income? How can I find ways to save money? Or how can I budget appropriately to make it last as long as possible?
And that leads into the next question, really. So how can students manage their money better? Like what can they do? They, like you say, they receive this lump sum of cash in September, and it's really, really tempting to go and buy themselves a load of nice new clothes for uni, or go and blow it out during freshers and just have a wild time and really enjoy it and spend loads of it. It's so easily done. But what can they do just to not do that? And what advice and tips are out there?
So, I mean, the first thing to do is, even before you get the money, because if it is a student loan, they will give you a payment schedule. So you know exactly how much your first payment will be and when you're going to receive it. And then you'll know when the second payment after that will be in the second term. So you know exactly how long and how many weeks that money has to last you and what it has to cover. So budget from the very beginning, work out your costs. It's always good to speak to people as well. So if you've got friends and family who've been to university, ask them how much they were spending on things. Ask them how much a regular shop was. Ask them how much they were paying for internet. Or ask them, what kind of things that we're spending loads of money on. You might be surprised to find out, the odd night out probably costs a lot more than you initially realize when you factor in all the extras, just taxis, for example. And you got to think, how often would you want to go out? So factor in everything from the beginning and make sure, you're not missing things out, and budget smart. There's lots of budgeting tools online for students you can use. I recommend a website called Save the Student. There's plenty of tips on that about the best ways you can budget. And one of the advantages you have as a student is student discounts. So plenty of great websites out there offering student discounts. One example is the Totem card. So a Totem card, you can pay about £30 and it lasts you for 3 years. And lots of places accept it and offer discounts. You've got discount websites specific for students like Unidays and Student Beans. So any essentials you need, you can get discounts up to 40% on. So if you need something, take advantage. And that it can include course materials. Other websites even offer special student deals on things like laptops, for example. So if you do need any big ticket items, kind of factor in that there are places you can get discounts. There are options available where you can get extra support. And, all else failing, if you finally come to a conclusion that, this money is not going to last me, there's going to be a shortfall, I'm going to have a budget deficit, look at ways to maximize your income. As a student, you can work part-time. There's plenty of jobs out there appropriate for students. which can be flexible around your studies. So we're looking at things like, work in catering, part-time work in, let's say, a bar, maybe a warehouse even, maybe even Royal Mail sorting office. So there's a lot of casual work out there for students that you can comfortably fit around your studies. And, it's a great way to kind of maximize your income and make sure you don't end up in a deficit. If you've got regular outgoings, make sure that you're not exceeding your overdraft. You've calculated for all the outgoings you've got regularly. It could be something like a phone bill, for example. You have to pay that regardless, or otherwise, you're not going to have a phone, and that's pretty essential. So make sure your standing orders, your direct debits, they're all scheduled properly, and you know what when they're going out, and obviously make sure you've calculated and you're expecting them as well.
You raise a really good point then as well about if what happens when there is a point where you don't have enough money, and how can you make sure that there isn't too much of a deficit. So like just getting a part-time job, and I think when somebody moves to a new city, it can be quite a daunting thing, but there's always like jobs going, especially for casual part-time, that really are like suited to students who have that flexibility of either working in the evenings or at weekends, or around their like just their schedule in terms of uni, their classes. Like you mentioned, like retail, hospitality, bar work, warehouse work. You can do like a 6 till 2 shift or something at a warehouse, and then you might be a long day, but you could still make your afternoon semester or something. And it is, it's definitely a great point to bring up. What, like, if students are kind of after a job, what support is available? I mean, especially, from obviously ourselves, the team at Future You and the Careers and Welfare team, what support's available from students to, maybe help them get jobs or look for jobs, or is there any support there? And it might not necessarily be, at UCEN Manchester, but sometimes it might be available other unis. Are you able to give us a bit of an idea what might be available for some students?
Yeah, absolutely. So every university knows it has students who are looking for kind of part-time work, casual work. So sometimes the universities have work available themselves. There's job boards available in the student unions. But also, you've got these careers teams who can make appointments. You can go and see, and you can just inquire that I'm after casual work, I'm after a part-time job, and they'd be happy to signpost you to the best places where you can find appropriate work as a student. Then it's a case of helping you apply for those jobs. So some job applications may require an application and a CV. So it's making sure you've got an appropriate CV ready for the kind of job you're interested in, because even casual work needs a good CV sometimes, or it's helping you complete the application properly. And then, if you happen to get an interview, then it's kind of helping you prepare for an interview, maybe even a mock interview, just to give you some practice. We appreciate that for some people, this might actually be their first ever job while they're studying, or first ever job. So it's really good just to get some practice, get some advice, make sure you're ready for the interview, and make sure you're applying properly as well. It just gives you a greater chance of success a lot sooner. So you can start having some income a lot sooner as well. And the most important thing is knowing where to look. There's plenty of websites out there, plenty of job adverts out there. But it is always important that someone can help you filter through those and, make sure that job's appropriate for you. Sometimes a lot of these job adverts, they almost need translating. So they use a lot of terms that students may not understand. So we always recommend, if they're not sure, they come and speak to us, and we can make sure the job is what they're expecting to be, it's appropriate, they understand the pay, they understand what's involved. So it's always best to do it appropriately the first time round, so you know exactly what you're getting into. No university, no support team wants to help or put a student in a job that is not appropriate for them, and then they have to go back to square one and look for a new job because the first time round it wasn't suitable for them.
And I think I bet loads of students don't realise that, you know, people like yourself and support teams like yourself are available for this kind of, you know, advice on their campuses. And it's just, you know, teams like you know that you're in do a lot for students to help them in many different ways. And I think it's just, you know, important that students make sure that they exercise these the support network that's available to them. I mean, I know when I was at uni, I wasn't aware of you know, the help I could get, and sometimes that's just down to not asking. I mean, it could be that it was mentioned, and I'm sure it was definitely mentioned, and it is mentioned in prospectuses and on websites. But sometimes it's just about sometimes asking for help and just reaching out. And I think sometimes you have, like, you know, problem shared is a problem halved, because, you know, once you speak to someone about any troubles or any advice that you need, they're able to kind of put you in the right direction. And it's, you know, teams like yourself and people like yourself who are able to help in this instance, you know, when it comes to job searching and like everything that you just mentioned.
Absolutely. We always, you know, love it when students approach us and ask us. We always appreciate that students don't always know where to look. So most universities, including ourselves, will make an approach during Freshers Week to go and introduce ourselves to students, let them know how we can help, what we can support with, and also where they can find us. But also, you know, any support staff will signpost to us. That includes tutors, course leaders. So, you know, at UCEN, we try to take this all-encompassing approach where any staff member you go to can refer you to the right support. So you're always kind of supported, and you know who to go to ask for help and where to kind of arrange to get the appropriate support and help to effectively get what you need.
So another thing that some students may not kind of be aware of, or is just kind of know how to get the most out of, is student finance. So my question is, how can students ensure they get the most of their student finance? Now, obviously, student finance is something that they apply for mostly more before they come to university. So, you know, let's just say someone's come to uni, they've applied, they've got what it is, and then it turns out they could have been eligible for something extra. You know, how do they make sure that they make the most of that?
So the most important thing about student finance, we can't stress enough, is apply early. Student finance normally opens for new applications in early spring, and they give a deadline of around May every year, so end of May. And what they normally say is any application that goes in after the end of May, they cannot guarantee that it will be assessed and approved by the start of your course. So apply early so you can be certain that the money will be ready in time for you to start your course, especially if you need money for rent. You may be paying an entire term in advance. You may need deposits for certain things, money for course equipment. So please start early. There's a lot of information out there on availability, eligibility. Not every student will get the same amount of money. Some will get more, some will get less. And it can be a surprise when you get less because everyone assumes they're going to get the same amount. So that's why it's really important to do the assessments early. And if you find that you have maybe received less than you're expecting or less than you're entitled to, that way it's a lot easier to rectify in time before your course actually starts. So there's a lot of information out there about who's eligible for what. Student Finance England themselves puts a lot of information out there to say what's available, what the eligibility is, and also look at your own personal circumstances, because the money that you're entitled to get from Student Finance England is based on every individual circumstances. That includes household income. If you're under 25, it's your parent or guardian's income. If you live with a partner, they look at your partner's income. If you've got children, there's additional grants available. So always look at what they're offering, and normally in the application, they will ask you the questions, they will prompt you for things. So effectively, they are giving you the opportunity to see what's available to you. They're not hiding anything. They'll be very open. As you're doing the application, they will ask you, what would you like to apply for? What is available to you? So it's very open what you're entitled to in terms of Student Finance England. But in addition to that, look at what your university will offer you. A lot of universities out there offer grants, bursaries for certain groups. So depending on your background, you could be entitled to additional bursaries that come directly from the university themselves. And usually that is something they advertise before you start the course. So even before you join a university, you can find out, if you decide to join there, what is available to you. So if you go to an open day, you can ask them. You can always just check on their website, see what's available. But it's very important that you check it's something you're eligible for as well, to avoid disappointment, really.
No, that's a great point. I mean, a lot of people might not be, aware of, the universities offering additional grants, or even that they may be even eligible. Some people might just think, oh, I'm going to struggle here. And then you might just not think that, that they're able to get help. And I think another important point that you just raised is, when you go to open events, as well as speaking to the curriculum teams and finding out about the course and, and the campus and the university in general, ask about, what support is available and, what you can get from the support teams. And, like you mentioned, what grants do they have are available and what bursaries, and just finding out from the get-go, because, like you said, sometimes that can really help, a bit closer to the time or later down the line. And it's just good to get a good idea of what is available. That's definitely a good point.
Yeah, definitely. Especially, with the grants and bursaries, because it doesn't come from Student Finance England. If you're applying for UCAS to 5 different universities, that's maybe 5 very different style of grants. Some universities will offer you equipment, some will give you money, some will give you vouchers. For example, at UCEN Manchester, we offer what we call the recognition award, and it's a bursary worth up to £1,000 over 3 years for eligible students. And our eligibility, for example, is based on mature students, or maybe students who've been out of education for some time, or maybe students who've got disabilities and could use extra financial support. So other universities may offer something similar or offer something completely different. So it's really good to ask, even before you apply, what financial support will be available in the next academic year if I were to join you. And anyone who's working there will be more than happy to assist you or point you in the right direction to let you know what you are eligible for.
Fabulous. Okay, so I think we've covered all the topics that we said we were going to cover. Is there anything else that you'd like to add? Is there any kind of, advice you'd like to give any students?
I think the key advice I can give for anyone moving on to higher education is make sure you plan. Higher education is a massive financial commitment. Whether you decide to stay at home with your parents or family or move out, either way, there's cost involved. And this is something you're going to be at for 3 years, and you want to make sure you can, be successful at it, and make sure you can stay there for as long as your course is. So always look in advance. How much is it going to cost you? How many hours are you going to be spending there? Can you afford to work around it? Can you comfortably pay your bills with the student loan and any grants you're entitled to? And it will help you make a decision if it's best to move out, best to stay at home. So that way nothing will catch you by surprise. And always ask questions. You can ask your friends and family who've been to university about the reality of it. You can speak to the player, wherever you're interested in applying to, they can give you some insights as well. Or wherever you're studying now, you can ask them. There will be advisors who can tell you about the true cost of university. But even just looking on the Student Finance England website, looking at information on the UCAS website itself, there's plenty about the cost of higher education and about budgeting. planning for higher education. So it's really, really important to do your research well in advance before you make the step, and also getting any applications in for financial support, student loans in as early as possible. So by the time you start your course in September, everything is ready for you and there's no delays.
Brilliant. I think you've covered quite a lot there, and it's been really useful. As well, it's just about giving people, you know, a bit of an understanding on what to expect, or just introducing the fact that just when you go to university, it's, you know, there's a lot that you also need to think about. Obviously, you've got your course, but don't forget about the other side, the financial side, and how that might impact you. But I really appreciate your time tonight, Bobby. It's been really insightful, and I hope that people find this useful. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there for tonight. So thank you everybody for joining us. Yeah, and have a nice evening. Thank you. See you.
Thank you so much.